Welcome, everyone. It is 9 o'clock, 9:02.
No interest. Let's see if she wants to just keep you. Thank you. Yeah, I appreciate it.
We'll try that again. Good morning, everyone. Welcome
Good
to our
morning.
9 o'clock board briefing meeting. It is October 1st, 2024. Gosh, I can't believe it's already October. We have Commissioner Kearns, Commissioner Jordan, Commissioner Cooney are in. Commissioner Waldrop will be here shortly, and Commissioner French is away on county business, so he will not be here today. So we'll go ahead and get started, and Kevin Ritchie.
All right, good morning.
Sheriff, sorry.
Good morning. I just have a few items to brief today. The first one is our 2024-2025 SRD contracts. These are for obviously the school year for 24 and 25. They're kind of trickling in, but basically what it is all of them, for one deputy now they pay, their share is gonna be $56,805. Is their portion. It's about a little over half of what a deputy's salary and benefits are. Central Valley and Meade have requested 2 deputies, and so they pay basically double the amount. Included in the cost is also, if you remember last year, we implemented a program where they're going to start paying a certain percentage of the benefits as well as the salary. And so this year it's $7,114. It's included in that cost. In addition, also in the cost is the deputies or the SRD specialty pay. They pay 100% of that. So the county doesn't pay the specialty pay for the deputy. So that's all included in the cost of the contract.
And it's a 1-year contract.
1-year contract, yes. And I know we're a little late coming into these, but yeah.
Has that changed over time, the cost sharing?
Well,
Is
it's
this kind of a status quo continuation of what's already happening?
We're starting to increase.
The school share?
Yes.
Okay.
So the schools paid, it was like 36, it was just a single amount that they paid, and so now it's trying to get them to come.
so I'm trying to. Traditionally, they've paid just a share of the salary, and then this last year we met with them, and because of the BOCC wanted me to have conversations about increased costs, and so we met with them and started, and we're going to ramp up the benefit costs where eventually they'll be paying half the benefits. So,
It was originally like 36,000.
yes, 36, 37,000.
Yeah, which was just so the contract was just for that single amount. And now we're trying to get it up to at least half of all the costs. What we, I guess part of, and Kevin, you can correct me if I'm wrong, part of the thinking is, if we're sharing in the cost, then it's, they're sharing in, the sheriff's deputies are still part of the sheriff's office and not part of the school district. So all that information is flowing back and forth, where like the school district 81, their entire force is within school district 81 and does not necessarily share that information with the Spokane Police Department. And so we want to make sure that we're doing this in a collaborative manner. So that's part of my purpose in making sure that, we're still part of those costs. So they're our employees. So we're getting all the shared information across all the school districts.
And the SRD program has been a great partnership with the districts, and it's a force enhancer. These deputies are out there. They're not just in the schools, they're on the road, they're in the communities, and they serve a population of the kids throughout their districts and everything. So they do take away work from our patrol deputies because those calls for service would be dispatched patrol deputies. So it is nice having them out there during the day because they do take the workload off of patrol deputies so they can go to emergency calls. So it's a really good partnership, and one we want to continue, and we hope to county sees that. And then I'll skip down. I'll save the middle one for last, but the next one is the 2025 Washington Traffic Safety Commission High Visibility Enforcement Target Zero Award. This is an annual grant that we received from the state. this year it's $110,000. It's exact same grant that we received last year, except for they have increased our awards, so we are getting a little bit more money, and it's for high visibility traffic enforcement. So they go out and work overtime shifts in high traffic areas and write speeding tickets and focus on impaired driving and reckless driving. And no cost to the county.
How much?
It's 110,000. Yeah. I tell you, it's more than it was last year, and I cannot remember what last year was. I think last year was in the 90s, so it's a bit more picture. The third item is the public camping ordinance. There's been some recent court rulings, and I'll let Mr. Anderson kind of explain more about this, but some recent court rulings that are allowing us to change language in the ordinance if commissioners desire to do so.
So this is a result of the Grants Pass v. Johnson decision out of the Supreme Court, which overturned the Martin v. Boise decision that prohibited any enforcement of camping ordinances on public property when there was no other homeless shelter space available. As a result of that decision, that has changed and is no longer a requirement. This proposed amendment simply eliminates code section 615.080, which requires these, which was put in place as a result of the Martin v. Boise decision, which suspended enforcement of the camping ordinance anytime that no space was available. That created some obviously kind of practical implications in enforcement and some significant hurdles to, ensure that you had space available before enforcing that ordinance. I'll let Under Sheriff Ritchie talk about the kind of those practical applications and how that affects, the use of this ordinance.
Well, it obviously creates some issues when you're trying to address specific, neighborhood or regional problems, especially in parks. And it's certainly not a situation where we want to just, take enforcement action or arrest people who are camping unlawfully. But there are opportunities to move them along or move them into, other public areas where they're not, filling up the parking lot of parks or camping in the middle of parks and that kind of stuff. So it's it would help. It would certainly be a tool that the deputies could use out there in kind of addressing these chronic situations.
Question. Are there currently calls coming into the sheriff's office with complaints? Like what's the current status of the problem, so to speak, in the unincorporated? I think we all, see the city issues, but just wondering how it's different there and what the volume looks like.
Well, it's really difficult. I mean, there are calls. Definitely not the same volume that you get in the city of Spokane. Definitely not the same volume as you get in the city of Spokane Valley. But there are calls for service. I think in the unincorporated area, and I hope I'm not misstating anything here, and so I apologize if I am. But what I believe the bigger problem in the unincorporated areas are specific problems. Like there'll be a specific issues where like a neighborhood will call and say, that they're experiencing a camping problem or people parked on the side of the road and whatever. It's more of a not an overall issue around the county because there's obviously a lot of area of the county, but it's more of a specific neighborhood complaint type problem in the county, from what I understand.
Are there any numbers that the sheriff's office has?
I can get them. Yeah, I mean it'd just be called out. I could have Sunny pull that up and send over to you if you'd like.
You see it up north.
And to your point, it usually if you get an email or a phone call from one person, you'll get an email or a phone call from someone else whose address is on the same street, or they'll reference the same location. So it is sort of, a neighborhood at a time is usually how I've definitely experienced that with.
We refer those to our neighborhood resource deputy, you know, to go take care of those specific things and work on it. So.
So what would be the process then? That the sheriff would be promoting to, if someone's camping in a public right away somewhere up north and there's some concerns and the neighbors call, what is the process, or what would your sheriff deputies be doing then to?
That address the issue.
Yes,
Well, I think it differs.
I mean, I get the challenge with the Ninth Circuit and trying to figure out if there's space somewhere. I mean, now that's not, you know, a factor. But what would be the process of trying to find a location to move that person to, especially as we're getting into the cold weather?
Well, so when you're dealing with problems like this or dealing with an incident like this, I think it's a totality of the circumstance type of thing. So it's not you know, this isn't a trespassing call inside the store where you show up and you know, the store doesn't want an individual there and say you're trespassing, you need to leave. And if they won't leave, then you take it to custody, right? I mean, those are your kind of options, right?
Like on private property, right?
Right, this is a different situation. This is public property, it's public, you know, generally public land and so the deputies take a more measured. Kind of systematic approach to it, and it's generally a process where you know, like the homeless deputy we have in Spokane Valley, you know, that position was created when I was the assistant chief out there. The deputy will go out and contact them, he'll provide them services, he'll, you know, or links to services or and then he'll recheck with them to make sure that they've gotten that or they're progressing along and moving along. And it's not a thing where you show up and you say, all right, everyone out, or you're going to jail. That's not the approach. You know, logistically, that would be a hard thing to do anyway, because you have to deal with, you know, their property and removing them and taking them to jail, perhaps, if that's, you know, if you do that. So it's definitely a longer process, and it's something that you take. You know, if someone is refusing to comply, you know, eventually, then, you know, maybe a citation or jail is appropriate, maybe. But it's more of getting them involved in services or getting them to move along to someplace that's more appropriate for them to camp. You know, there's other options out there. So it's really difficult to answer because it just depends on the circumstance. It depends on, you know, if it's in the middle of a residential neighborhood and they've set up a camp on the side of the street, you know, that's something that needs to be probably dealt with more rapidly than if it's in a more secluded, like in a park or something like that. So I hope that answers your question, but it's something that you have to deal with case by case and kind of figure out what the best solution for that particular problem is.
Well, I know that, I am concerned, but I guess the city is trying to look for more locations for the like emergency winter
Yep.
sheltering. So when those locations are identified, when it goes below a certain temperature and there's emergency shelters, is that information shared, or how do you, and then you guys try and address that and get people where they need to go?
Well, absolutely. And you know, the primary concern,
Although if it's that cold,
right,
people are probably not
being in a tent is probably not,
Yeah,
you know, adequate either.
ideal,
And so,
yes, not safe, yeah.
exactly. The primary concern is always safety, right? It's public safety, safety of the individual, safety of the public. And so that is going to be a major consideration for any deputy responding to any of this, or any, you know, the neighborhood or the crime prevention officers or the homeless deputy or any of those people responding to this, is going to be what the safety of the individual is, and then the public safety. So absolutely, if there's a place for them to go that's warm and safe, then that's where they're going to be directed to. Now, they are free, and so, you know, they can choose not to do that, but you know, that's definitely going to be the route that we take. We don't want anyone having any kind of health issues or, you know, out there in the streets. I mean, that's the last thing.
So I appreciate hearing kind of the thought process. I didn't really know about the deputy in the valley that specializes in that. So I'd like to just learn more about that, you know, as we're considering this.
Right, and that's the city of Spokane Valley, so that's based on their ordinance and their.
Right, yes. No, but it sounds like they that position brings like you said, a measured approach. As we know, we have jail capacity issues, and so I'm hearing you say that, the idea with this would not be to take every single person to jail in the absence of some safety issue or reason that was appropriate. Do you know, has Sheriff Knowles given any thought to, or do you have any thoughts on this approach versus mirroring the city's Prop 1 ordinance, focusing on park, schools, daycare, et cetera? Just curious what you think about that.
Well, I guess I can't speak for the sheriff, and I probably don't have enough information to answer your question right now, so, I think the sheriff's office and I think the sheriff would take any sort of information or suggestion, to solve these types of issues. I don't think anything's off the table, and so, and I don't think the sheriff believes anything's off the table, so, but I'd have to look into more of what you're asking. I don't know exactly.
The Valley is just across the board, is that right? Their camping ordinance.
I don't know what theirs is specifically.
Theirs is very similar to the county's.
I think we did model them the two off together. Because we were trying to make it consistent so as deputies were either in unappropriated or in the Valley.
We coordinated with them and they were implemented at similar times.
And I
Between the Valley and the county.
I don't know if the Valley is seeking to modify their ordinance. I don't know. I could ask the chief if that's on their radar.
We may want to do that.
Yeah.
Just so they're aware.
Sure.
I know, so being by the Dishman Hills, there's a lot of camping that goes on in the Dishman Hills that we know too. So it's not just on the north side, it's also, in my district as well. That concerns from the neighborhood that is in the city of Spokane Valley, but then the Dishman Hills is unincorporated. So it's that coordination between the two and with our parks department, because then if a call comes in, the park ranger will go take a look too. But the neighborhood is very aware of this, from the hikers and from the potential fire risk. So they tend to be calling if somebody's in that area, especially on just from Micah's side. So I do know there's a lot of calls for service there. I mean, I know at least
Right, and
10 a year. I
oh,
don't
at
know.
least, yeah, and the calls come in different forms, some of them aren't generated as a call, like a neighbor or a person calling crime check or 911. A lot of them come directly to the commissioner, like their email, and then they're forwarded to us, so. Yeah, and you're correct, there is some public health issues around it, and then there's also there was a fire out there last year, and I think it was a direct result of.
Well, there was just one
Yeah,
a month ago
you're right,
or a
so,
few weeks ago.
yep, exactly, so there is a concern there with the fire danger as well, so.
So that would be good to follow up and find out what's going on with the city of the Valley as well and strategies, because they do, and they also have an individual I met last week when the mayor was from Houston was here speaking. And I think he spoke at the Homeless Coalition. They have an actual housing homeless staff person as well at the city of the Valley, who I'm assuming coordinates with this officer around.
They partner with
Resources,
the,
yeah.
I call them homeless deputy, but the I think it's the homeless outreach deputy or officer. They coordinate and they work daily with that person, and they co-respond to a lot of those.
Seems like a good strategy.
That's another question I had is, separate and apart from this issue, or maybe it's related, but going forward, if the board takes some action in line with this, how do you envision kind of connecting people who might be camping up with the Crisis Stabilization Center, if that's warranted, if there's a behavioral health problem, which I would imagine there often is with drugs or mental health, co-deployed team, would that be a appropriate typical response in
Yeah.
many cases?
Well, I think, like I said, I don't think anything's off the table, and our behavioral health, BHU unit, the co-deployed teams, I think would be perfect for responding to those specific type of incidents. crime prevention deputy often gets tasked with these, reoccurring problems and to kind of deal with it and solve these issues. And so that person would work with the behavioral health unit as well to make contact. I mean, these are all things, like I said, the thought process is not, you're here illegally, it's jail. That's not the thought process. The thought process is getting them into services, getting them somewhere safe, and then cleaning up the neighborhood of the public safety and health issue. That's what it is. And if it takes a little time to do that, that's fine. But we want to make sure we connect it with the right services, because there's a theory, the broken windows theory, right? Where you just kind of move things along and you clean up the area and move it along. We don't want to push a problem to another neighborhood, right? We don't want to push a problem to another part. We want to solve the issue as best we can. So it has worked really well. I can say it has worked really well in the valley with the way that they've tackled it. And like I said, it was when I was the assistant chief out there, and I piloted the program, so I know what they do. But it's a separate thing. It's their budget, it's their positions that they created, and they had I think they had more emerging or specific problems to deal with because of their proximity to the city and the fact that they're a city and that they have these parks and everything that are close by and easy to camp in and they did have some recurring problems with that. So they helped to address the issue. I think they want to expand the program, to be honest with you, but it's budget.
They are using some of the dollars that they kept back, their homeless recording fees. They're using that, I think, to pay for this individual at the city plus some of the services that are there. Okay.
I believe so.
So it's something to think about. Like, I didn't know if you guys have explored whether that would be helpful, if you feel like you have the capacity. You said you have a crime prevention officer, you have a couple officers that end up getting involved.
Right.
But it's just something to think about. Do we need to think about the resources or capacity? Obviously the calls for service aren't as much, but.
Well, I think this is a perfect thing that could be, when the sheriff has a kind of a vision of neighborhood resource officers of expanding that program, or neighborhood resource deputies, sorry, of expanding that program and kind of, focusing on regions and assigning deputies to certain regions. I think this would be a great, use of those types of those deputies and that staffing. We don't have the staffing. We're not there yet as far as staffing model goes, but that is one of his visions is creating that program, and that would be this would be a perfect way to assign this type of issue to those deputies in that region. So, and then there'd be more of them. There'd be 3 or 4 of them to kind of handle these situations, along with the behavioral health unit.
So, Chris, I'm just gonna ask you, so what we're asking for here is just moving our
So,
ordinance
yeah,
to what is legally.
correct. Yeah,
Meaning that
currently legally permissible, yes. Yeah, the requirement in sub 080, it was required by the Martin v. Boise decision out of the 9th Circuit, and that changed when the Supreme Court overturned that in the Grants Pass v. Johnson case.
So this is just maybe.
Correct. We no longer are legally required to have 615-080 in place.
Okay,
That's all I have. Thank you.
thank you. Okay, so next up, Deborah Burton. And that's our card.
Good morning.
That's back.
Thank you.
Good morning, commissioners.
Good morning.
So the first property I want to talk to you about is the one on Evergreen that the county owns. And this property was originally purchased for our road, we widened Evergreen back in 1999. And then we sold this one house to the general fund for the scope project, which was brand new at that time. And so this became a scope house. And it was sold to the general fund for $83,700. The scope people have now moved to the Valley Mall and the house is sitting vacant at this time. It did have some problems. It was actually raining inside of an area, but risk management came and they fixed that part. The deck out there is unsafe to walk on. But house itself is in pretty good shape. And it's a nice house. So I had it appraised on April 10th, 2024. And it appraised for $399,000. And I would like to have you direct me to be able to post it onto GovDeals for auction at that price point at $399, and then see if it sells. And if it doesn't sell, then I would like to be able to put it on our county website and sell it over the counter for that price to the first person who walks in willing to buy it at that price. What I also need from you is what contingencies would you like to allow for the winning bid? Would you like it to be able to be subject to financing or subject to a clean title report? I don't think as a county we have any contingencies we would like to add to it. But that's the first house. Are there any questions?
So when you put it on as the minimum bid, the $399?
And that's the appraised value as well, so we wouldn't lose any money. And this is owned by Fund 10, so it is owned by the general fund.
I assume the zoning is residential. I mean, cause it's right in an area there where just kitty corner, you have commercial and all that. I mean,
It is,
it is still
Zoned
zoned
residential.
residential still, okay.
and I have some other pictures, if you could move the thing. Yeah, so that's the house. And there might even be another picture, yeah. It was built like in the 70s. It's still, in the inside, it has hardwood floors. And it's a nice little house.
That's actually your district, 'cause it's just north of Sprague. Yeah. So no, I think that, setting the minimum at $399, seeing if we can get anywhere with it.
Yeah, I would just say, appreciate Deb bringing this forward. There's a number of parcels or properties that the county owns. We have no use for them right now. This was a use before with the Scope House, but now it just costs us money to maintain it. So by being able to surplus this and sell it, it allows us to take some of those dollars and put it into other properties like Scope, who utilize general fund owned properties to maintain those things, because we don't have a regular recurring source of funds for those. Yeah.
Is this the kind of property that might make sense to consider for some kind of affordable housing purpose, whether maybe Family Promise might be interested? I don't know if it's the perfect house or property, but I know I was able to tour one of their facilities recently, and they had kind of retrofitted or turned just a single family home into a quite nice shelter, so to speak, almost like an apartment situation for multiple families. So if it's owned by the general fund, we don't have that issue of the Public Works road fund owning it. And I'm just raising that as a question. If there's multiple properties, I know we don't have an ordinance now that allows us to do that, but we could pass one if we wanted to. So just a question for the group.
It's a 3-bedroom, 1 bath. It was actually built in 1954.
Oh,
So,
How many properties are there? What's the list we're talking about?
You have
Well-
a sense, Deborah?
you mean scope houses, old scope houses, or?
Well, Scott mentioned there's numerous properties. I'm just wondering, are those all scope houses? Is it?
Oh, no, I've got a few houses on Bigelow Gulch that we're going to be selling. here as we finish our project with Bigelow. So happy to have Bigelow finally closing. But I do have another house that, the next house that I'm gonna talk to you about is owned by the road fund. It is located on Bigelow as well. And so that is a nice house as well. And it has a little bit more property attached to it. And stuff, and it's right across from the school there.
If you put it out for auction or you put it on, is it Gov Deals, you said, do you then come back to the board? Or you just go forth and,
We just go to closing. So if somebody goes through and bids on it, and that's why I'm asking you about contingencies now. That if you want to allow contingencies for Gov Deals, otherwise you bid highest, you can't get out of it, so I'm asking whether or not you want to allow contingencies for somebody, for financing or.
So if it's for financing, what is that? What do you mean by that?
They can they go and get a loan to be able to pay us? And if they can't get a loan, then
Lined up.
Contingent upon, allowing them to get a contingent upon acceptable financing to be able to have the bid accepted. As opposed to just cash.
Can I ask Deborah, have you looked to see how do property like this do on Gov Deals? I remember when you first came and educated us about Gov Deals, some of the stuff I looked at, there were some screaming deals around the country. Like, this isn't gonna go for like $30,000, is it?
Well,
Like, when it's, when you're,
yeah,
I mean, are we gonna put a minimum bid of 400? And do you
you're gonna
think,
put a minimum bid of this
Are we gonna-
$399, and
do properties go for that much on Gov Deals?
they can.
Okay,
But what they want to do, when I'm talking to Gov Deals, they want me to start at a real low price. And then they want it to sit on their website forever until they finally get, enough people involved so that they get the bidding going up. And so we tried to do that with the Dishman Appleway piece.
Yeah.
We put it at a lower price on their thing, but we had a price that we were going to have a reserve on. And it just, nobody bid on it, not one person bid on it. We had one person who actually paid to have the right to bid out on their website. You have to put a deposit down that's refundable, but we only had one person that did that. And I don't know if I'd want to bid on a property when there's a reserve, and you have no idea if you're going to be accepted or not. And one of the things that Gov Deals was so excited about is that they were saying, well, with the bidding gets up and you have that reserve of $599 and you get like $580. And if it's $580, then you guys could decide whether or not you wanted to accept that lower bid or not. And I talked to our lawyers and they said, nope, once the board has set that, they can't go back and do it. And I said, okay, well then that doesn't work for us. We can't accept a lower bid. So it seems better to just go, this is what we want, either bid it or don't. Then if they don't bid on Gov Deals, then I can on our website go through and say, hey, this is the price. We've held our auction. Is somebody willing to go through and buy it at this point? And if they are, then I can take them immediately to a closing agent and we're done. So that's why I got a little frustrated not being able to sell our Appleway when we had 3 people who had offered us. But yeah,
okay. I'm okay with you putting it on there then. Give it a shot. I don't know if people are gonna buy it that way, but I don't know.
So I'm just trying to understand, is there a legal reason to do that, or why don't we just offer it at that price over the counter then? What's
we have
the
to hold
benefit?
an auction.
Oh, that's the legal
Yeah,
process.
and we
Okay.
used to have it so that I would bring, I'd
Right.
have people with offers in hand. And I'd come to the board and then we'd have to open it up to an
Yes,
auction.
okay. Yes, so this is easier, but also has these interesting nuances, okay. Well, it seems reasonable to put it at the price and see what happens.
Personally, I'd prefer to talk to Family Promise or Habitat for Humanity or something, just find out if it could serve another purpose, but that's my
So-
thought.
Is it zoned just,
Residential.
but single family or? Cause it could be
Presume
worth,
it's presumably if it's a single family home right now, it's probably still single family.
potentially with the changes could be up fourplex or twoplex, but.
It's in the
Right, but not
valley.
until, not until
So that would
20
be up
not
to
until
them, not
26.
us. Well,
I
it wouldn't
see.
be us, it would be the
City of
valley,
Spokane.
because it's in the Spokane Valley.
Right, I'm talking about the state changes that require, that you don't require, but allow you to go to a slightly higher density.
I think
'Cause
that's
that would be-
26.
I mean, whether this. It would probably only be useful if it could be reused, right, for, not necessarily torn down and rebuilt, might be too expensive for that.
I have a feeling though, this might be coming back in front of the board because while the appraisal was $399 was back in April, we have seen some softening in the real estate market.
Yeah.
So just trying to think of another, if there's another alternative, I don't want to necessarily, and we don't talk about our minimum bid in our open meeting here, but there may want to think about a different approach on this one so that if our goal is to get rid of the property because we don't want to be sitting on an unused property, then maybe we think about a different value to place on it. So I just don't want this to have to come back to the board and we're not successful selling it and we're still sitting in the same situation that we were now, and that's been vacant for 2 years, right? A year.
A year, it's been vacant, cause they left sometime in, I think it was February. And then, going through and seeing it raining inside the building was not fun, so. Getting that fixed and getting it approved and getting all of that. And it's scary to keep a house, vacant.
Exactly.
Looking online, it appears to be commercial mixed use zoning.
Oh, see.
I mean, it's a very small parcel, so what you could do with commercial zoning, I don't know, but something else for consideration.
That's what I was wondering if. There was a higher, better use.
Is there any way to, I mean, to get around the auction by seeing if the city of the Spokane Valley wants to buy it? Just a government to government, does that change anything?
We would still want the $3.99.
Yeah, no, I know, but offering to them, hey,
Yeah, we
would
could.
you guys like it?
If you want, I could go through and talk to them and see if they want to do that beforehand, but that would then it just put us off of that home sitting there that extra time.
I don't know, I just wasn't sure if, since one
guys
government
want-
owns it, another jurisdiction, but it'd
We
be
could
nice to
always-
at least say, hey, we're going to sell this, we'll give you guys the first shot at it, do you
Well,
want it or not?
They
I
may
don't-
wanna use some, if they may wanna pursue with some of their affordable housing dollars, like a different strategy, which they could consider. I don't know what's in their plans.
You want me to reach out to them and we could pull this from your agenda and bring it back. For a week or two.
No, if we need to pull it, I mean, I think it'd be pretty quick, they would probably tell us on the first phone call if they want it or not. So,
I guess I would say. Cause this is on next Tuesdays.
It'll be the notice, and so, yeah, the notice will be next Tuesday, and then we'll be in the newspaper for 2 weeks. And then I'll be able to put it on Gov Deals.
What if we delay 1 week and then set it for not next Tuesday, but the following Tuesday?
Okay,
That just gives them enough time to think about it, the valley, so they can, because they'll need to, they won't be able to make a quick decision.
depends who you talk to on that thing.
So. All right.
Does
So,
that work though, still with the public notice? I mean, the
just
notice
delay
in
it.
the
We'll just
newspaper?
delay
Oh,
it by a
okay.
week.
Okay,
that'll be fine, I think. Now, you want to talk about the next one?
Yes.
Okay, so the next one we have is on Bigelow Gulch Road. And yeah, there's a nice little map. The school is right south of it. And we bought it for the Bigelow Gulch Road on October 10th, 2008. And we bought it for $237,350. And it had quite a bit of property attached to it, but we bisected it with our Bigelow Gulch Road. And we sold the rest of the land to the school for their fields out there. And it did appraise for $438,000. There is currently a leak in the roof and it is covered with a tarp out there. And so we want to sell it as is. And I am a little bit urgent about this because winter's coming.
It's not a water feature built in.
No, I would like to get this one sold as soon as possible. So on this one, the contingencies, subject to financing, subject to a title report, subject to them looking at the roof. Maybe, I also have a house sitter in there and I would need 30 days to close to let them get out of there, so. After it's been auctioned off, so that's one contingency the county needs on that. So, what do you guys think about this one? And this one's owned by the road fund. Oh, and could you move the picture forward so they can see the house? Oh, it's like. See the stones on top, that's where the hole is.
Landscaping's on the roof.
Yeah, there's landscaping on the roof.
What's it appraised for?
That one's 438,000.
So it has some acreage.
Hmm?
It has more, it's a bigger lot.
It's a bigger lot. Unfortunately, the assessor's parcel layer isn't showing it properly right now too. So I'll be asking the assessor to redo the lot lines, but it's not showing it right. It doesn't show our Bigelow Gulch Road where it actually is.
Yeah, the assessor site has it. They have it in square feet for the land, 161,963. So I don't know what that equates to in acres.
4 acres, but that's
Yeah.
not
Okay, and I don't know why usually they put acres when it's that large, but for some reason this is still in square feet.
Yeah. It's,
So if it's owned by the road fund and it's sold, does the revenue
go to
stay in the road fund?
fund.
I'm good with moving forward.
I guess on both even as the other one, the contingency that I'd like to see just to allow a family to be able to get into it would be to allow a financing option.
Yeah.
Yeah, just because I think otherwise then you're opening up where it's just people that have cash that can come in and do
Right.
it. And I'd rather see a family be able to get into as affordable as it could be. So I think on both of these, I would want to add that contingency.
And you're okay with the 30 day closing too? I need that.
Yeah.
So subject to financing on
People that are
the,
looking for homes are pre-approved. You know, so a lot of people that are looking for homes are pre-approved for a certain amount. And so they
Right.
know it, but so, yeah, I just would like to make sure we have that option for a family that doesn't have cash that could
And a lot of banks and stuff wanna do their own appraisal, and if they come through with a different appraisal on that house, they won't fund them for our price. And so I'd hate to have a family who's gone through and bid on it, then we have to try to go after them because they're not fulfilling. I always like that get out of jail free for financing, just in case, so I don't have to go and try to sick our lawyers on them. I just don't want to. So subject to financing, I think it's great.
We want to have a time window for when the financing has to be secured. We don't want it to be open-ended.
True.
15 days,
We want them to close within, what, 30, 45 days?
probably 45, but I think they need to, if you're gonna have a contingency on it for subject to available financing,
Drag on for a
we
while.
should have a window that says financing must be secured within 15 days. I'm just throwing out a number.
Okay.
So you can go 7 days, but 15 gives a little bit more time. If they're not able to, then goes next.
All right. So now Buttercup. My Buttercup died.
Why?
That's such a lovely name.
You interested, Amber?
Well, the other word, the second word is not interesting.
Yeah, so this property is owned by Fund 10. It is owned by the commissioners. We acquired it because of a lawsuit. It had originally been owned by one of the old townships. The East Spokane Township number 49 had owned it. And they had operated a dump in it and then they sold it. And a developer went through, he tried to get financing in order, well, he got financing and then he went to try to develop it and he let it go back to the bank. And then the bank can only hold land for 5 years and they came to the county and said, you know, take it off of our hands or we'll sue you. So that's how we ended up with it. It does have a no further action letter for the dump itself. And so, but it also put a deed restriction on all of the property. So in order to be able to develop the rest of it, you have to go talk to ecology. And from what they told me the last time I talked to them, you would have to come under today's restrictions on a dump and sign in order for them to release the rest of the property out.
And what would that entail?
Well, at the time that I talked to them, which was 3 or 4 years ago, they didn't think it was that they were going to require that much more on the dump. But, you know, it has been 4 or 5 years and the gentleman who I had talked to has since retired. So I don't know. So the dump is 2.42 acres. And if you see the 4 lots that are there on the left-hand side in the middle, that's where the dump's at. And so it's within a corral fence and it has a liner over the top of it. And Deb Geiger is here. She knows all about dumps. And so since it has a no further action letter and they replaced the deed restriction, we had it appraised and we had it appraised in 2022. So, and it's hard to find an appraiser that can appraise a dump. We had it appraised at $695,000 at that time. And we did get an offer for it. And we went through to go to closing, but he had a contingency for financing. And he could not find anybody to finance him. And so he got out of it, but we did allow in our purchase and sell agreement for this that you could extend your offer for 120 days. And he did do the extension and gave us a non-refundable $5,000 to extend that time. And that is something that I would like to keep in our purchase and sell agreement for this property. You know, to be able to extend your offer for another 120 days for $5,000 non-refundable, because I think we should also allow them to have the contingency to have an environmental report done on the property and to have to be able to do a feasibility study and to do some of those other things. So it's a little bit, this is a little bit different property. So financing, a title report, feasibility study, additional inspections, maybe up to 45 days for an environmental review. Do you, so, and then maybe that extent, being able to extend it in case he wants to do more more in-depth environmental studies. We also need to have a contingency for us that they have to sign a piece of paper saying that they received this report that Ecology has. And that they acknowledge that this is a dump that they're buying. And that, received a copy of it. Oh, and that they have to do an annual review every year. You have to, I go out every year to go look at this site, make sure that the brow ditches are clean, make sure that I don't have any pine trees trying to grow up through our cover, and making sure that our spillways in good repair and stuff. And then I have to send a letter to Ecology every year to keep our no further action letter alive. So, that is our contingency, would have to have them acknowledge, they have to do a letter to Ecology every year, keep up that dump. Also that they got a copy of the report and that they know that it's a dump.
So yeah, so this is in my district and it's been kind of on and off with different things. I think, cause it's been a while since we've done the appraisal. And there's been a lot of development around there. So I guess I would ask to delay this because I would like to have more discussion as to what really could happen with that property. Cause I don't really understand, you know, until we understand, we can't really understand the value, just like an appraiser isn't going to, until we really know what is allowable on that property or not. There's a developer around there that I know would love to have it, but I don't know if, you know, what the opportunities are on the property. I know the neighbors would not be very happy, because it's been this open, nice space for them, with views and all of that. So I have a lot more questions, I think, before we put this back out to auction. And unlike the houses where, you know, it's gonna get winter and we're gonna
Yeah.
be paying the cost for all of that, this isn't something we're really paying a lot of cost on. So if you and I could sit down and really have a good conversation
Okay. about
about it, so I can really understand and like I said, understand what the value is, what the potential uses of it could be, because can it really be used for housing?
It can, from my last talking to Ecology, it can be used for housing, in fact, he's
See, and I-
retired now.
Right, but I just worry about that because again, looking at what's happening on the West Plains, we've got a dump, and if we're gonna let them dig on a dump, what does that do to the water system? And you know, talking to the water district there, I know there's a lot of people around there that are on wells, just outside that area.
Yeah.
So
There's a 100-year flood that goes through that too.
So, I mean, I think I just have more questions based on new information as we are dealing with other areas of the county to make sure that we're, you know, doing this right. Cause I don't wanna get caught in that we've sold it to a developer. Now all this stuff's gonna happen. What does that really do? And I wanna make sure that it's really on Ecology. It's not on us. Cause as you said before, we got to take it back. Otherwise we were gonna get sued. So.
Yeah.
I think I have a lot more questions on it now, learning over the years.
All right.
Well, and do you think it's a situation where someone can truly build a house? Or is it college you say, yeah, you can build a house, but you can't dig. You can't put any plumbing, you can't run a sewer pipe to the house, you can't run a water pipe, you can't put anything on top, yeah, you can't put any footings. I mean, it's like, is it more in theory, yes, you could build a house, but logistically, there's no way they're gonna be able to build a house on it? Like, is it that kind of situation?
Myself, I would never build on top of the dump because you don't know if they compacted it properly,
Mhm.
if it's gonna shift and stuff, but I'd use that as the green space for my building around it. But that's me, not, and I'm not from the Department of Ecology either, but, yeah. I don't
Well,
know
and
if Matt,
Lucky we have a resident expert on
yes, we
landfills
do.
here. Yeah, but what I would tell you is, my suspicion is the actual parcels that have the dump under, or parcels on the left side and the center, you would not ever develop on. It's the other parcels that have the value, and
Yeah.
reasonably, you would look at vacating all this right of ways and combining them into a larger parcel and then creating a new road system that served it more efficiently. And, you know, there's value there, but certainly not in the dump parcels. I mean, that's just a
No.
perpetual.
When I-
road, basically.
And last time we did change some of the right of way in there and make some of those parcels bigger, didn't we?
No,
No, we haven't yet. Okay.
no,
We talked about it then.
yeah,
I think.
this
Okay.
is, could you move forward a picture or two? And you can see that's the 100-year flood there. And before that was all of the contour lines. You can see how the contour lines are just, it is steep.
Yeah, and it's granite.
And it's very granity and stuff. It's very steep.
And so,
It would take a lot of earthwork.
so it's kind of those 4 parcels to the left. that You
Yes.
said that are where the actual dump was.
Right, that's where the dump is, where those 4. There, you see the
Oh, it's
blue
this-
line that's
That's
around it?
dump.
That's where if you see that blue line, that's where the fence of the corral fence is, and that's where the dump is under, so.
And see, that's where 13th Avenue coming through is the developer that.
Yeah, and he's on that other side,
Yes.
and so they could enter in off of that way. And those 4 that are on the right-hand side are clean.
Yeah.
Yeah,
This is also in the valley
yes.
and
City of Spokane Valley.
yeah, city of Spokane Valley. I mean, is this, sorry to keep sending you towards the valley, but it's like, I mean, with a property like this that is so restricted and you said the neighbors currently kind of view this as open space, or it almost makes, it's like, should the Spokane Valley turn this into a park?
Well, we tried
I
to
mean,
get.
I assume
Buttercup Park
people
sounds
can
really
walk
nice.
on it, you
Not
can't develop
park.
anything on it, but I'm sure you can probably plant grass on it. I mean,
Yeah.
if you're so limited on what you can even do with this property, it's like, what more could you do than just
True, and
a park? I don't know. I just,
and at the time that the Spokane Valley Incorporated, I tried to give them, cause the board at that time had thought that this would make a nice dog park. And we were going to turn that into a dog park at one time. But then the city of Spokane Valley Incorporated, and I tried to turn it over to them as a park.
Mhm.
They refused to accept it. They wanted us to indemnify them for it, and we refused. So at different times, I have tried to talk them into taking it. And they have not wanted it, so I don't know,
Even
maybe
with,
now they do.
even with a no further action order, they still don't want it.
They did not want it, because they wanted us to indemnify them. They might have changed their mind now that they've been around for a longer time.
Well, maybe there's a conversation to be had about separating out the dump from the parcels that are clean and have value and.
I think
You
that's why.
can't do that without opening that, yeah.
But it's gonna get open whether do it or the person buying it does it. And
But it just seemed like an opportunity for a developer to negotiate with the valley over some open space and then what can actually be
Yeah.
developed.
If you're
you know?
truly limited on, like, you essentially can't do anything with it, then yeah, what do you
So
do?
I guess that's why I would like to delay, because like I said, I have a lot more questions that,
Okay,
I
so we'll
think
pull
now-
this one.
yeah. But you guys are okay with that?
It's up to, I mean,
Yeah.
it's in your district. You know more about it than any of us. so.
Yeah, no, I would like to, you know, to do more work on this one. And really understand what's going to happen. And see if it's like industrial crap.
You're allowed to do that.
Okay, okay, so we're gonna pull that one.
All right, well, that's what I had.
Boy, that was fun.
It's easy.
So Deborah, is it better to delay
You learn
both
more every
those
day,
two
Chris.
parcels, so you're coming back at the same time?
I,
If we're delaying the first one a week.
Sorry.
Yeah, sure, but we could delay them both. The one with the hole in the roof, I was just hoping to get that one out.
No, we can do it separate. I mean, that's fine to just get get that one.
Okay.
I just wanted, I didn't know what would be easiest for you. That's all.
I would rather get the hole in the roof one, so this.
Okay,
So.
let's do it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks. Yeah, that's.
Okay. I guess sit down. And you brought a crew?
Good morning.
Good morning.
Yes, I brought the crew. Real quickly, I wanted to introduce you to Quinn Gardner. He's our transfer station operations manager. We hired in May. So I just wanted you to see his face.
Yeah.
Right, thank you. As you probably see him a little more as we move along. And I'll be giving our quick presentation today. So this is just an information only briefing at this point. It's basically a kind of an FYI on our timeline. So we went out for an RFP for household hazardous waste, or HHW as we call it, for those services at our two transfer stations at the beginning of September. And that RFP closed on the 25th, so last Wednesday. And we are in kind of a tight timeline to do negotiations and have someone, a contractor there on site with staffing, materials, supplies, when we start for HHW, it'll be November 16th. So today we are hoping to kind of buy ourselves a little bit more time by just letting you know that we are on a tight timeline and that next week we'll be coming to you with a recommendation to move forward with our top ranked firm in the morning, and then having approval on a resolution in the afternoon.
But if I remember right from last week, or I don't know when it was, you were here last year, you would have the name by Friday or hopefully by Thursday to get into the Friday briefing papers. So that way it's not, Chris, correct me if I'm wrong. So that way then we don't have to do a special,
It would need to be published at least 24 hours in advance, so for.
And we will be getting it by noon today, so we'll have everything ready in the normal timeline. We met as an evaluation committee this morning. So we're just basically finalizing our documents and we'll have them all ready today, but that's how kind of tight of a timeline we're at.
Okay.
We're hitting all of our marks, but we're hitting
yeah,
them really
no,
close.
because I think we knew that you were gonna be opening bids this morning, right? So anyway, so yeah, just as, I think as long for us, as long as the name of who you think will be the successful bidder is in the paperwork for us for Tuesday that gets published on Friday, then it's just part of our consent agenda. And then if you, sometimes what Public Works will do, they'll send us, here's the bids and here's who we've chosen for this reason. I don't know if you guys can do that or not. Thank you, Wayne. Is it are you scoring or is it low bid?
We scored.
Then you can just probably list the names and say this is the high scorer that you're choosing. Just so we're aware, just because there are times where we get calls from the people that aren't the successful bidders.
Yes, we're learning that when that hasn't happened.
Yeah, maybe it's just me because I'm a contractor's wife. I don't know.
Purchasing should be including that in your packet, in the briefing agenda.
Okay,
It should be in their
scoring, firms, all that sort of stuff that Deb and team are going through.
Sometimes that's hard. So it's a little varied, so yeah,
Put it front and center.
if you just want to send it. Or have purchasing, send it directly, because I don't know, we know several people around that will potentially make phone calls, so. So anyway, so that would just be great, from my perspective, but I think then that, you know, as you guys you're scoring today, or you're working on.
Yeah, we're scoring this morning, so
As soon as
pretty much
we let you go.
wrapped up. Yeah, we pretty much wrapped up. We're just finalizing, but we know which direction we'll be going, so.
Okay, great. And then I think, yeah, as long as it's in the packet for Friday, then it gets published and it's just part of the consent agenda for us. So are you guys feeling good about getting everything going and being ready to move forward?
Yeah, actually, yeah, I keep reminding everyone, it's kind of like building a house. It seems like it takes so long and so slow, and then in the last couple weeks, everything just comes together, so.
Yeah.
We're getting really close.
You guys are smiling about it, so that's.
Can't tell you if it's that like a nervous smile. I'm getting there. And just to give you guys a little bit more information on this, so we were very transparent in the RFP that we are investigating whether it makes sense to staff our HHW stations with county staff. And so within that, we had firms propose on staffing it, which we will proceed with when we start in November, because we will not be prepared to do that. But it gives us the option to now kind of investigate the feasibility of staffing HHW with county staff, and it buys us a little bit more time to do that well and to really dot our i's and cross our t's to make sure that that's a road we want to go down. If we do not, then we stick with the contractor and have them accept chemicals, isolate them, pack them, transport and dispose. If we were to do it with county staff, we would be accepting chemicals, isolating them, but then we need to figure out what's that line for packing. And then we would always have a contractor doing the transportation and disposal of chemicals. This basically buys us a little bit of time.
So if you do decide to go in a different direction, is it like a 1 year with the 5 1-year renewals, 1-year minimum contract?
Yeah, that is part of negotiations.
Okay.
What kind of terms they would like to proceed as far as their contract renewals.
So we'll know more next week or when the next presentation.
Probably no more in a few weeks, because next week we will have the authority to enter into negotiations, and then over about 2 weeks,
Okay.
we'll be able to negotiate with the firm on.
Final contract.
Yeah.
Okay, got it.
Any questions?
I'm excited for you all.
Thanks for the time. Thank you.
Thanks.
Heather. Yeah, there's Heather, she's coming. How are you doing this morning?
Good, how are you? Talking about our justice assistance grant for this year. Our formal application is due October 22nd. Our award total this year is $169,949. $160,994 will be our administrative cost. We will do a subrecipient agreement with the city of Spokane for $76,478, which is half of the award minus our indirect cost. The MOU between us and the city of Spokane will be on your docket for next week's approval. Our allocation, we will get a total of $93,471. Of that, $16,994 will be our indirect cost. $38,238.50 will go to the prosecutor's office, which helps pay for an FTE support staff position. And then the other $38,328.50 goes to the sheriff's office. And that is actually split between the sheriff's office and the city of Spokane Valley. So the city of Spokane Valley is part of our disparate jurisdiction now. That changed in 2022. And since the city of Spokane Valley does not want to be An applicant, they've just agreed to take part of the sheriff's office agreed to split their work with City of Spokane Valley. So that's how that money is now split. Most of that money for the sheriff's office and City of Spokane Valley spent on equipment. Any questions?
Is this an increase or decrease?
It's a
last time?
decrease from last year. Last year we had about 180,000. It's about $11,000. All right.
Good, thank you.
Have a good day.
Okay, you too. That's gonna take us to Doug.
Morning, Commissioners. You recall Julia Cole, our landscape architect project manager, has joined me this morning, and she is going to run through our request to pursue LTAC lodging, LTAC funds to assist with our towards our phase 1 Plants Ferry construction project. So with that, I'll let Julia take it away.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you for taking the time to listen to our presentation and request for support on the Spokane Valley Lodging Tax Grant for Plants Ferry Sports Complex. A quick refresher, you likely remember that phase 1 of the Plants Ferry Sports Complex renovation project envisioned up to 3 artificial turf soccer multi-purpose athletic fields, a new entry drive off of Trent Avenue, expanded parking, field lighting for those sports fields, and then lighting for the parking lot as well. And then associated landscape improvements to support those facilities. Next slide, please. We are currently in the validation phase with our progressive design build team, Garco and DCI engineers, which we entered into the $7.4 billion GMP award. Like I said, we're working through the validation phase, and we have preliminary estimates on both Camas Meadow and Plants Ferry, preliminarily anticipating 5 million of that 7.4 to go to the base bid for Camas Meadow Park, which would leave approximately 3.4 million for the construction of Plants Ferry. In the initial estimates, we are noticing a deficit for Plants Ferry for the construction of the full build out, and that's looking preliminarily at around 6 million for that deficit if we were to construct the entirety of the project. We anticipate that the validation phase will be complete at the end of October, at which time we come back to you board with more detailed estimates for both projects and a discussion in the capital needs for these projects. Slide, please. But in noticing this deficit, we've been in conversations both internally and with Scott on pursuing additional capital through both grant and other avenues. And so we're looking today for your support in pursuing 1.5 million through the LTAC grant application that is due later this month. And that 1.5 million is anticipated to construct, the first million would go towards finishing one athletics soccer field, and the additional 500,000 would go towards leveling that third field. So right now we're looking that we could construct 2 artificial turf fields and then level the third field into a grass field that would allow us in the future to maybe come back and do artificial turf there when the budget allows. We've been working closely with Spokane Rapids, who is the operator of the facility, and they've relayed the necessity to level some of the soccer fields to maintain many of their programs and their tournaments at the facility. We understand that there's gonna be a high level of competition for the LTAC grant this year with the Spokane Valley's cross-country complex that's going in and the hub, but are trying to pursue avenues of all capital that we can for phase one construction. Next slide, please. So if the board is supportive of the pursuit of this grant, this is the schedule that LTAC has. Submissions are due on the 14th of this month. And then the committee would meet to hear submissions, presentations. And then the first week of January, the council would motion for awards for the grants that are awarded dollars. Thank you.
Questions?
The deficit is for full build out, it's just for phase one, correct? Sounds good.
I think it's worth, you know, knowing it's competitive, it's still worth putting the request in, knowing that it will probably come back. And if we get a partial amount, you can still use those funds.
Absolutely.
Okay. And then two, I think it just helps build our cases. We've put into the state budget, the need for this, so.
Yeah, certainly. We're working with the contractor and engineering team to come back to the end of October with what we're saying is a menu option for if we are able to achieve funding of this amount from this source, and we have these pieces that need to be constructed, how we can allocate those funds.
We're really looking forward to having more exact dollars to work with. But at this point, we're doing all that we can to estimate, to take advantage of these opportunities as they come open. Because we can't let them pass us by, and we want to make sure we're chasing after every opportunity that we feel we have a good shot at. May be able to be competitive, and we're looking forward to throwing a hat in on this one. We've got a really good project, and I think it'll check a lot of boxes with the criteria that this program has. So we're hoping to make a persuasive application.
We anticipated, if you may recall, when Doug's team, when we had the master planning process come back, it was a very wide range of an estimate for the construction of the three artificial turf fields, lit, parking lot, access road. I believe it was from 6 million up to 9 million thereabouts. Over nine. So we knew that, well, we anticipated ARP wasn't going to fully get us to a build out. So we knew we'd have to be scrambling for some other dollars. LTAC is an opportunity. We've talked about car rental tax dollars that are available in there. Potentially a ask to the state in the legislative session or legislative agenda for the commissioners as well. So this is just one of the areas that the team is trying to pursue to get some additional dollars in there to determine how far we can go. Once they get the validation completed, we'll have a sense to be able to share with the commissioners, okay, for the dollars that we have, here's what we can complete. And then for every dollar that we get more, here's how much farther it can go towards getting us to maybe from one field access, 2 fields and access, or 3 fields access, parking, lit, all that sort of stuff. So just a lot of feelers that they're having out to try to find how we can bring some more dollars to bear to get to more of a completed project.
You're just moving.
Another
I
cup
thought
of
he was
coffee.
about to do the.
No.
but he just moved over.
Thank you for being ready though.
No, I just agree with you. I mean, seek the funds. I mean, we know we're up against some stiff competition with some folks, so with some things in the valley and being there, LTAC, but certainly go for it. So it's like Commissioner Keeney said, might not get the full ask, but might get part of it. So
Absolutely.
I think those folks know the value of Plants Ferry to the Spokane. I mean, they wrap right around Plants Ferry, the Spokane Valley. Yeah, so I'd say definitely go for it. So.
Absolutely. Great, thank you. We will do exactly that.
And I think it's a good way to show that we're seeking funds from every possibility.
Right.
You know, as we do the state ask, that's one of the things that they look at too, is, you know, who else have we talked to and seek funding from. So, and I think it does support then when we do, when we do look at our own carbonal tax, that, you know, this is money that we need to invest within the county as well at this point in time, which we haven't had that opportunity before. And now that the fund has built up a little bit more, I think it's gonna give us that opportunity.
Very good.
Right.
As I recall, $1 million was put into the governor's budget related to Plants Ferry.
I think it's, was it a, I don't
We're
know,
limited.
Jeff, 2 million? Oh, we were limited to
I
a
think you're
million.
limited to it. Not that,
But
the
you're doing
commissioners
a
might not, I
Combined request with the valley. I think so, it's a $2 million ask.
think we're trying to.
Yeah.
1 million requests for the governor's.
1 million total, okay.
When do we find out? When is the governor's budget released?
Usually December.
Okay.
Thank you. You are paying attention.
Always listening.
He's DMing me there.
Oh, Jen.
I love it. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it.
It's gonna take us to George. Right?
Good morning.
Good morning.
Well, Chris and I wanted to give you all just kind of an update on some of the work that we've been doing in housing and community development. I think folks have heard some things about some of the coordination and different efforts that we've been undergoing with the city of Spokane and the city of the Valley. So yeah, we just want to take a minute here today. I put a few attachments into the agenda item just for points of reference for you all. So we're going to get to inclement weather, but I wanted to highlight a few other things before we get to that point. So first, I wanted to let you all know that we have a draft interlocal agreement between the city of Spokane, Valley, and the county. And this is really centering on a collective effort to reduce and end homelessness. So we're anchoring into the 5-year plan that we're working on right now. It's been a regional plan in the past, and we're trying to really shore that up and make sure that we're all rowing in the same direction as opposed to each jurisdiction going about their own different ways, and really supporting that those goals and needs that have been identified in that plan. So so we've got that interlocal in draft format. I'm consulting with our legal team later this week on that to just kind of get some feedback on where we're at. And really aside from the anchoring into the 5-year plan, the goal is to really solidify our efforts to coordinate and collaborate on this. We heard several meetings ago that at the regional collaborative meeting, that this seems like an opportune time because of the folks that are in the room. And that we should have something to shore that up. So that's where that interlocal is coming from. So that was one of the things that we noted at one of those meetings, is that we need to formalize those agreements. So in time, you all will see some type of an agreement coming forward for signature on that. The second thing.
So maybe I'd ask that you brief us before just asking for a signature on it, just to get some feedback as to what that would be. I'd hate to have it be finalized and you're expecting a signature the next week. I think we all want to know kind of more of what's really happening and going on, because as I had my mayor to chair meeting, the mayor was talking about these things and I didn't know anything about it. So, so she was like, oh, the city and the county and the valley are all working together on these things. I'm like, really? Okay, I don't know what that is. So I know that's part of this briefing today, but I think it's still, even with those agreements, those are our agreements. And so I think we need to be, a little more part of that discussion process.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, we've been sprinting a little fast, and so, yeah. Thanks.
Can I ask, did John Holman get the group together? That was sort of the ending of the last regional homelessness meeting. Was John Holman was gonna get the jurisdictions together and kind of lead a conversation. Did that meeting occur?
Yes, we've had 2 meetings since then. So that includes the city of the Valley. So John's there, Gloria's there, Dawn and Ariel from the city of Spokane, and myself. So we've had 2 meetings, and in those meetings, we've talked about a number of different things. So those 5 bullet points that came from that last regional collaborative meeting that we've really been trying to focus in on and make sure that when we do reconvene, that we've addressed some of those and that we were able to bring some progress forward to that group. So that's kind of the some of the sprinting that we've been doing. So
George reached out just to say, we're working last week, and the next step was to reconvene the group for them to present some of the ideas. So, good timing.
yeah, yep. So absolutely, we will.
What do you mean George reached out?
He just said, hey, we've had several meetings. Can we get the regional collaboration meeting back together again?
Oh.
So I was gonna have Amy this week
Okay.
reach out to your office and Bingle and see if we can get a date on the calendar for them to present some ideas about interlocals, which is kind of where we ended the last conversation.
Just a general update on where we're at in that work. So we absolutely will come to you with that draft ILA before we're asking you to sign anything for sure. We also are working on partnership. I don't know if I've mentioned this in this meeting. It's with the regional health district. So this is a collaboration between the city of Spokane and the regional health district. So we have one dashboard that's regionally focused using the data that's in the homeless management information system. So the data sharing agreement is between the city of Spokane and the health district. But of course, we as a county have data that's in there as well. So the hope is that we have something that's going at least live with some preliminary dashboard metrics by the end of October. So we're making really good progress there. The health district and the city are working really well together on that. And then this is going to be, we're trying to do an incremental approach. We want to get something out there for public feedback. We've engaged with the Continuum of Care board to get some of their thoughts and feedbacks on what those metrics look like. And so as that rolls out, we'll just continue to add to and refine what those look like based on feedback that we get from electeds and community members, service providers, et cetera. So that's one thing that we're really excited about on that. Chris has done a great job. He's developed what we're calling our interagency funding tool. So if you think back to a lot of the work that the regional collaborative team, Gavin and Rick, were doing last year, looking at the whole system, how much funding is available in there. What we've done is, or what Chris has done is developed a tool that says Spokane County, how much money do we have going to different homeless interventions? City of Spokane, how much money do you have? And then the City of the Valley, how much money do you have? So we met with the City of Spokane late last week to present that matrix, and they're working on filling that out. So hopefully the next time the regional collaborative meets, we'll be able to demonstrate effectively the funding that exists between the jurisdictions. And then there are restrictions as to what intervention types we can fund within that. So then we can start talking about proportionality to the populations that we're trying to serve based off of those metrics.
Okay, so, I mean, we were Scott and I were part of that process during COVID, trying to get the information and all that. And I mean, I would caution us that there's, all of our CDBG money and all of this stuff can be used for that, but we also have other reasons that we need to set some aside for, I mean, the CDBG that comes into, Spokane County, goes into some of the unincorporated towns for, sidewalks, for sewers, or all these different things that they don't have those fundings for, that's part of what it goes to. So I just want to make sure that we're being very cognizant of that it's not just all going to this pot, because at that time, Arian was kind of the project manager and it's like, well, all of this could be used for this. And so it kind of inflated the number when there's other needs that still have to be taken care of and done that we as the county oversee to make sure it happens for them. So that's just my caution in how we approach that and look at that. So I don't know, so I guess I'm asking, you know, are you paying attention to that and ensuring that we're still taking care of the other needs? Not just that it can all go to homelessness, but it still has to go. There's other needs, community needs that these communities have.
Yeah, really what we're trying to do is isolate the homeless specific funding. So CDBG home are other revenue sources that can be used for other more flexible things. That is not included as part of this matrix, only homeless specific funding sources. So yeah, we know we've got a lot of needs that exist and we don't want to lump everything into one. And I think that was maybe one thing that was a bit of a challenge last year with the regional collaborative as they were looking at the lump sum and then trying to narrow that down. So we want to come into it with a very specific focus right now. So what we're looking at is our state funding, both the city of Spokane as well as the county, state funding, the federal funding, which is smaller as it relates to homeless specific, and then some of our document recording fees that are reserved exclusively for homelessness. And those are the only things that we're looking at. We're hoping that this really pilots a process of transparency for funding that we can utilize for these other fund sources, but each one will be isolated by their specific portfolio to make sure that we're not overlapping on those.
Thank you.
And then the last thing that we want to talk about was the inclement weather. So I'll frame it up a little bit and then Chris can talk about the results of that, kind of some of our next steps. So we've been talking for some time about how does Spokane County respond to inclement weather, recognizing that the needs in our rural community may be different than the urban needs. So we've been looking at it there's an urban need, there's a suburban need, and then there's a rural need. And so we were talking about different thresholds. The city of Spokane has identified through Spokane Municipal Code different thresholds that they have. We don't have those types of thresholds. So we've been meeting with, we were just out at the National Weather Service yesterday, talking with them about some of their thresholds for what constitutes a warning, severe, etc. That provides us with some information. We're also engaging with the health district and then the Gonzaga Climate Center to try and see if we can wrap our arms around what this entire thing looks like for an appropriate response, recognizing like the city of Spokane in their municipal code, they say that anytime it's 32 degrees or lower that you activate a warming center. We know we do not have enough money to activate for 32-degree weather. So what is the appropriate, if it's a crisis emergency, what is the appropriate response for that within what we could afford to support? So we've been talking with the city of Spokane staff. We've also been engaging with the city of the Valley, saying we will be the representative for the Valley residents in this work. And then the city, as they put out their request for inquiries to see who would be interested in managing or administering a warming center for the winter, we said, well, we will join along with you and put out a request for information. You all can really focus in on what that urban response looks like, and we'll look at what the suburban and rural response looks like and see what kind of feedback that we get from that. So that was kind of how we went into that. We had the request for request for inquiries. We opened that with the city of Spokane. We ran separate processes, but we had it open and closed at the same time. So open on September 12th and closed on September 25th. And Chris can talk a little bit about some of the results that we had there and then kind of what we're looking at doing next.
Yeah. So really, as George was saying, we were exploring the capacity of existing and service providers as well as other for-profit local jurisdictions, faith-based institutions on understanding what we could do in these rural areas, the suburban areas. We received 6 responses. I wouldn't say that all the responses were exclusive to the county or I'm sorry, rural and suburban responses. And so that kind of informed, I think, the capacity deficit that I think we're going to experience throughout doing these looking for service providers for this. So I think it's something that we're looking into and putting into the next RFP, and ensuring that we have that covered. The city's exploring their options of taking their RFI information and then having a cold weather response based on that RFI information. Ours did not yield, I would say, the a ton of rural service providers that we could say, yep, they can do this. And so that would be probably some programmatic things that we would have to set up within our contracts or within a different type of program or process to respond to these emerging needs. So we did receive 6 responses and we will continue to explore what that activation criteria will be, what those levels and thresholds will be, hoping that we can come up with something that is a little bit based in logic and methodology, and not just creating arbitrary thresholds for us to activate.
I think one thing that's really been important in our mind as we've been thinking about this is we don't want a subsidy of existing shelters. If this is a crisis emergency response, we need to have a crisis emergency response that correlates with that. So whether that's through cold weather, hot weather, smoky weather, or if we have something, we want to also incorporate different emergency responses. So when we think about the fires that we had last summer, that needs to be a part of this as well, so that as we're waiting for insurance providers and other providers, that the county has some structure in place to be able to assist where appropriate.
So you're also talking to DEM, Chandler Fox and the sheriff.
Yeah, we have reached out to Chandra on that to discuss.
Because that's truly, when it's considering emergency, that is our response. So we need to be coordinating and talking with them to see what they think it should be as well, and how we fund it. So I mean, but it's like last year getting the call from Avista that there might have been issues with the natural gas lines, and so that was going to cause a burden when you're in extreme temperatures. That's an emergency response that goes through the sheriff's office. So we needed, I would just want to make sure that we're talking with them, since DEM is under the sheriff's office at this point in time. Could be under the commissioners if we chose to bring it back, but it is under the sheriff's office at this point in time. So if we're gonna say an emergency, we need to make sure that we're coordinating and working with them.
Yeah, yep. Yeah.
Can you talk about how an RFI process relates to a potential RFP and kind of what information you seek?
Yeah, thanks for asking that question, because I think at the briefing last week for the city, I think it was presumed that an RFI and an RFP are the same things. This was really effectively kind of a survey to service providers to say, is there an interest in this? Do you have capacity to do this? And then based on your response, we'll start coordinating. So we have a meeting with everyone that responded to the request for information or inquiry. We have a meeting scheduled with them, I think it's tomorrow. To debrief on that and get information from them to say, what do you see the structural gaps and weaknesses are, to make sure that when we do put out the request for proposal, that is an intent to fund. This was an intent to get information back from the community. That we're putting the appropriate priorities and needs in that document, so that we're getting something back that that is addressing a need beyond what some of our perhaps assumptions are.
And what was reminding the time frame on the next RFP process? And if all goes well and you feel like you have something that could be put into that, you envision it being kind of part of that RFP package or for a request?
Let me answer that 2 ways. So the first is we are planning right now to release the request for proposal on November 15th. The reason I'm answering this 2 ways is folks will say it'll be cold by November 15th. What are you going to do in the interim? So Spokane County, we have you all approved contracts with homeless outreach providers. So what we're looking to do is Chris is helping to co-lead meetings with our homeless outreach teams monthly. And so what we're gonna do is we're gonna really lean onto those folks and get their feedback and guidance on how we're gonna go about an inclement weather response that's appropriate for folks, recognizing that we don't have beds. We don't have identified beds for this at this time, so we'll help work with those folks that we're under contract with to reach out to folks, make sure that they have access to the appropriate level of service.
So you're looking big picture at basically extreme heat, extreme cold, severe smoke as possibilities, and then trying to kind of gather as much as you can to figure out what's the right threshold.
Exactly, as well as, you know, we did kind of incorporate emergency center activation kind of criteria into this as well, understanding that if there were a fire or something, the emergency management center would activate at level X. We would say, if, you know, we passed that threshold, level 3 or 4, depending on what the level was, we will also be able to kind of leverage these resources to respond to that. And that could be any number of things as well. So it's just something that's kind of comprehensive that we know that is supplemental to our already provided services.
And I think it's also important to note that as we've gone out into the community the last several months, we've gone to each quadrant, if you will, and this has been something that we've been asking folks about. We've got different feedback at every one of those stakeholder meetings about what an appropriate response to inclement weather might look like. So we're also taking that feedback into consideration as we design this.
It's good.
Can you touch on who the six applicants were in the RFI, or the individuals that reached out?
Yeah, sure can. So just kind of down the list here, we had Family Promise, proposing a scattered site model, Compassion Addiction Treatment proposing a model in the Division Corridor, a for-profit LLC, LFR3I Ventures. That was a medical lake response, but again, with the RFI, it's very limited information, so we probably want to explore what exactly they were proposing in that application. The Greatest Matriarch Society, again, limited information. This was a Spokane Valley project, but they had identified that I believe it was 150 folks that they were able to serve, if not more. And that didn't line up with what we believe the capacity would be there. So some additional information to gather in our meeting. Transitions, which again is also within the city limits, and the YWCA, which would be a scattered moteling type of program, and they currently offer that type of services now. So if that were something that we were interested in pursuing, a sort of voucher or rural moteling program throughout the county, they would already have some established infrastructure for that.
So in all these discussions, you talk about urban, suburban, rural, are we talking to the mayors in the outlying areas? I think I'm the commissioner that my district has the most towns outside the city, outside of Spokane. So are we reaching out and talking to them?
We are reaching out diligently and talking where we can. Sometimes the response is not as excellent as we would like.
So I would just say, if you're not getting a response, please let me know so we can reach out directly ourselves, because Brenda and I have good relationships with most of those mayors. Because I just want to make sure that, again, we gotta look at, I mean, our county funds are for the unincorporated, and so how do I make sure that we're taking care of some of those unincorporated towns that don't get any funding because they're not an urban area, so they get no federal dollars or no state dollars for homeless. So we've got to make sure that we're looking at all of the citizens in the unincorporated as well.
This was also something that was briefed to the Housing Community Development Advisory Committee as well. So hopefully those representatives kind of reach back out to their local jurisdictions and say, hey, they only received X amount of responses. We should, start looking at the programming in this area. So
I'd hope so, but as we even see amongst
Yes.
ourselves, it doesn't always happen. So it's.
Speak for yourself.
We'll try, but it doesn't always happen. So I mean, I would just want to make sure that we're, reaching out and just making them aware, because this is a new process that you're trying to do. You're trying to seek that information. So I just want to make sure that we're getting good information from, Rockford, Fairfield, Layton, Spangle.
I'm sorry.
Oh,
Commissioner
well, I
Morgan.
was just gonna say, I appreciate your thinking about it as like an overarching inclement weather plan. Because something I've been concerned about is having not just emergency shelters in the winter, but now that we have such extreme heat days or smoke days in the summer. Luckily this summer we didn't have a lot of smoke days, but having those appropriate shelters throughout the county where people can go in and just get away from that heat or smoke. And Amy and I visited, with the Valley library director, the county library system director. And, there's just lots of opportunities for using, sometimes you don't need overnight, you just need some sheltering especially in the summer, it's like a more of a daytime shelter. And so anyway, I just hope we can start to, I'm heartened that you're having these conversations about how to kind of coordinate better. Because we do need to have options for people that live outside of the urban areas. It's not always easy to get to some sort of facility within the urban area. And so, and I don't like the word shelter. It's really just like a center where someone can go, get away from the heat, the cold, the smoke. So thinking about that and what you said, Commissioner Cooney, about our emergency management, really thinking about it in that context, just like when there's a wildfire, we set up a center for people to go who are displaced. It's kind of thinking around those same thoughts, which we're just having to evolve our thinking. So I appreciate that so when you talk about an RFP, it'd be for inclement weather.
So the RFP will be all encompassing of all of our funding, but we have the RFP ends up being a book and we've got chapters within the book. So the inclement
Chapter
weather.
1, chapter
yeah,
2, okay.
Inclement weather would be a chapter, if you will, within that request for proposal document.
I just think it's really important to think ahead and just have those facilities identified and then making sure there's a little funding put aside, because you don't really need to have that much funding to keep your library open a couple extra hours. You need some security, you need some additional funds, but it's just having that plan in place. And in my conversations with the county library, they were willing to do it. They just need to know, well, what's the plan? How do we staff it? What does that look like? But those are public spaces that are already there that could be utilized, at least in the summer, for like the smoke and the heat events. And I think that the City of Spokane Library System has set that up, but there's no reason why we can't have that out in the other areas of our county where we have other facilities, and whether it's a church or a private facility or whether it's a public facility, do we have those agreements in place so that when an emergency happens, we're ready to just jump on it,
Yeah, and a really important part of that is when does the light turn green? So we want to make sure that we've identified
Yes.
a very consistent, repeatable, transparent process that says that only at this point do we pull the lever of activation for these. So that's where we're really trying to get in and talk with some partners and get a better comprehensive understanding about what that looks like. Because 32 degrees in mid-October, that's really cold. 32 degrees in mid-January, it's still cold, but I could probably wear a light jacket at that point. So recognizing that's different from sleeping outside, but we need to have a system of activation that's in place that adapts to the weather appropriately. So those are some of the things that we're talking about and looking at. How do we establish those thresholds that we can just continue to repeat year over year?
And I guess I would ask too, prior to the City of Spokane enacting their ordinance, what were those thresholds prior to that? I mean, so I want to have some of that history, and to where we're at. Cause I know, and I think the health district will help, because it's when did they put out, because they always do like a summer heat, advisory, or they'll do a winter cold advisory, kind of what were the times, what were the temperatures at that they would do that. I know, you know, it's like the body temperature is 90. So it's like, it's when you get over that, then you don't have that, your body doesn't have that capacity to cool itself any longer, which is why you need the cooling centers when you hit over that temperature. I don't know what that temperature is for, you know, for the winter. So I mean, so those are be the questions I will ask and want to have the answers to.
Yeah, appreciate that. Those are the exact same questions that we're trying to tackle.
Yeah, so that way it's based on what your physical body can do or not do versus, you know, and what someone just thinks would be a good idea. I want to make sure it's based on fact and you know, for us.
To piggyback on that, so I think we've seen, you know, during the winter, I think a lot of these warming shelters are utilized. I think we can show that happens. I'm not familiar. I know the city has done the cooling shelters during the extreme heat events. How much are those utilized? Do people go to that? Because I've heard a lot of people say, like, when I know the city had set one up down at the Carousel one year. And I think after that was done, heard that was hardly utilized by anybody. You know, and, you know, people would pop in and check it out. And that was counted as somebody who utilized the cooling center when it was, I can tell you, an elected official told me they went in to see how many people were there. They walked through the door with their spouse and there was someone there that was like, click, click, and counted 2 people that had now utilized the cooling center. And it was an elected official and their spouse looking to see if there was anyone in there. And so are those types of facilities really utilized in the heat? I think they are in the cold. I think we've seen that. I mean, when it's you know, 0 out and even, you know, below 0 with a wind chill, I think a lot of individuals will go into a warming shelter, but are cooling shelters really utilized? And I don't even know, have we set up, you know, these centers for smoke events? And do we have any data to see that those are utilized when, you know, if there's wildfires and we have, you know, extreme smoke events? Do people go to those types of shelters in situations like that? I mean, and I don't know.
And neither do I. I don't have any data to speak on that. For the city, I know that the county, we haven't done, at least in the time that I've been here, we haven't done anything like that. So, yeah.
I don't know. I mean, I just think, I mean, if somebody did want to get out of the heat, I mean, there are a lot of public places someone can go already. You know, maybe not after hours you know, overnight, but during the day, there are a lot of places that are indoors where people can go. Are we creating something that there's actually a need for when it comes to heat and smoke? I mean, I agree with you that there is a need when it's extreme cold. I think, you know, that is needed, but I don't know for the heat and smoke. I don't know. I haven't seen any data on that. I don't know if folks have done those outside of the city, you know, when they've done their cooling shelters, but I don't know. I'd love to see some numbers just sort of regionally of folks doing something similar. Are they utilized?
Yeah. And I can say that our response may look very different from that. It may be for a low income household that's up in Deer Park. The air conditioning unit went out and or it's dirty and needs to be cleaned. Looking at different ways, because I think that's the way that a lot of folks are thinking about heating, cooling, etc. Well, maybe an appropriate winter response in a rural community is someone's pipes froze in their manufactured home. And so can we provide a service to a qualified individual to be able to get those pipes thawed and repaired?
But that's not what this is, though. This is,
well, I think
that's not what that is, what we just discussed, is it? I mean, we were talking about contracting, you know, through the RFI. I mean, I think what you're saying is great. That's not what we discussed today. Did we?
Well, no, because we haven't graduated to that yet.
Okay.
So that's part of the engagement and looking at the data, talking with the experts to say what's the right appropriate response for our different communities. Mm-hmm. Because in downtown Spokane, then that sheltering probably is a much more critical response. Whereas in the rural community, just making sure that someone that's already housed but vulnerable, they're at risk. Making sure that we've got services and ability to be able to keep them safe where they are. So I think we're really, that's kind of a, I don't know, I won't say that we're looking past the urban emergence sheltering. But we're also kind of, like, if that's already covered by the city in their response, then we've got to start looking at the other gaps that exist within our community and how do we respond to that? Because it's true, during hot weather, if you don't have air conditioning, then there are other places that you can go during the peak heat. And we were really wanting to make sure that the response is appropriate for the emergent needs. So overnight sheltering makes sense for a cold response. Overnight sheltering does not make sense for a heat response. A heat response we want during the peak heat thresholds, that whatever that indicator looks like, or that lever that we pull, it's during that period of the day. But we don't need to necessarily have an overnight response to that. And then clean air could be during the time of the day, or it could be a prolonged period. When we think about when some of that smoke settles into our valley and there's no wind, so we're just kind of locked in there. What does that response look like? And in some cases, maybe hoteling is the best approach for someone that their pipes have frozen, or there was a windstorm that blew their roof off, or whatever it may be. We want to make sure that we're able to adapt to really all of those emergent needs. One thing I wanted to note too, when it comes to funding, we would be looking at our more flexible documented recording fee dollars to be able to support a program like this in a very limited capacity, not be allocating all of those funds. Because we recognize if it's truly an emergent situation, these would be what we would consider outlying conditions, not the norms for what we would expect. We know it's hot in the summer, we know it's cold in the winter, we know it's smoky usually in August. So fund it appropriate to those outlying conditions that no one's necessarily prepared for.
Just wanted to share that the Gonzaga Climate Center has a map of the 19 people who died from heat-related event or heat-related causes in the heat dome in 2021 within the county. And most of them are in the city, but not all of them. There are some in Colbert, different outlying communities. It's kind of interesting. They have the age of each person. They've got the obituary and information from the medical examiner's office. So just something to think about. You know, it's an interesting question about what's the right response. And I think you're thinking about that, and it'll continue to be something that's looked at as part of the process, but there can definitely be some significant impact from these events. Sure, yeah.
Yeah, I remember going to when Gonzaga had a forum last year and they were releasing some of that information. And to your point, Commissioner Kearns, it really is, there's like responses for those who are unhoused, but then there's responses for people who are housed. And a lot of the people who passed away in that heat dome were housed, but they didn't have the necessary cooling devices or the knowledge of how to seek help, unfortunately. And to your point, like, I mean, working with SNAP to get fans or air conditioners, that might be a response to populations that are housed but don't have the resources. And I think at that Gonzaga forum, like, no one really wants to go, like, leave their house and go to a center. It's not like that's the ideal.
But I think
but so if you can keep people housed and keep people safe, that's always but sometimes it's just not possible because of circumstances, so.
And I think after that episode, I mean, that was the kind of the first real one that we had that was an extended period of time that, you know, I think Meals on Wheels helps identify the need and who needs a fan and helps with that. I think the health district, you know, we learned a lot of the health district, and so did more outreach on what what to do, informing the public what to do, where to go, just even going to a mall or going to the library. I think that's, you know, the city did set up, but I think people just didn't know, it's like your body temperature can't cool you down at a certain point, and so I think there's been more education since then to the public on the public health side of it. You know, to make it so we didn't have that same event happen again. So I'm encouraged that we've learned from that and have helped people, you know, especially, you know, through the health district, you know, try to be that informing body for public health to get people, you know, let them know that they need to seek help. And I think STA had provided free bus transportation, but people didn't know how to access it or didn't know that. So I think we're doing a better job as the public since that event.
Agreed.
Yeah, I was gonna add, the Aging and Long-Term Care organization had like a 1-year pilot with a Vista to fund like 100, you know, window air conditioning units for low-income seniors. Same thought, trying to get different ideas out there that might prevent that. So lots of different ways to go at it.
I think the last thing I want to add is we know we can't serve everyone. There's not going to be enough funding. We can come up with the greatest plan with the greatest amount of stakeholder input and everything. There's going to be a lot of discomfort during extreme events. We acknowledge that. We know we won't be able to help everyone, but we're going to do the best that we can with the resources that we have.
Appreciate it. And I think that's why it's important though to talk to us collectively along the way, because we do all have such different knowledge and information from the different organizations that we're also part of, you know, through the health district or aging and long-term care. You know, that it's important that we're all talking about it together before we start making major decisions.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks.
Okay. There we go. That takes us to the end of our agenda. So now it's time for Miss, I see Martha Loop starting to step up. She's got a miscellaneous for us.
That just sounded vaguely like morning.
I'm watching for these little inflections today. No, who are supposed to be calling on?
Well, Pat, first, do you have some things you want to share?
I'll turn it over to you, Martha Lowe.
Thank you. Commissioners, last week, I brought before you the Bigelow Gulch Forker Road Urban Connector ribbon cutting. And since then, late last week, I was contacted by the project manager who informed me that the guardrails will not arrive until October 14th, which is the date before the ribbon cutting. And the road will not be open until the guardrails are installed and the striping is finished. So I asked him to go back and to have a conversation with all of the contractors, the subcontractors, the vendors, and to give me some idea of when we could hold this. And he said probably around the 29th, which is the day before our original date. So, and the reason the 29th is because I went to your calendars to see if you're available. And you're very busy people. It's hard to get all of you together. Except on a Tuesday. And October 29th is a Tuesday. So I'm wondering, commissioners, October 29th, the project manager feels is a good date. I mean, God willing, and the creek don't rise. And it looks like your calendars, you're available. And I'm wondering how to proceed with this. I'm looking for direction.
Say we just go for it. I mean, I mean, we can't open before the contractor lets us, they still have access to the project. They don't turn it over to us until they're ready to, so.
So can I ask, so regardless of our ribbon cutting, when is the road opening to the public?
29th.
So it's
Or
gonna take them 2 weeks to install the guardrail?
You see, they have 15 days actually
Really?
in their contract timeline to install the guardrails. Otherwise, if we held it without the guardrails, we would have orange barrels on both sides of the road. And that's not the look I think we're going for with our funders from the state and various organizations like CRAB and FMCIB. So I'm sorry about this. The project manager came to me when he said, I'm sorry, the guardrails are coming late.
Happens. Yeah. I'll be out of town at a conference, but if it works for the other four, the 29th, yeah. But if it works for the other four, I don't wanna be the lone problem.
He also said that we should not have it at Argonne and Bigelow because that intersection and those roads have been open now for some time after the motorists in that area dealt with detours for like a year. He said that at the intersection of Wiley and Bigelow, the county owns some land. That section is closed. And what we could do is hold it there and then cut the ribbon and folks would proceed west, driving over the newest section that's been completed.
Great.
Which is where we had the last ribbon cutting, which came up to Wiley.
Yes.
Oh, when
New
we were,
section that was
yeah,
open.
yeah.
I'm wondering, because there's a lot of fluid movement in here and trying to lock down a date right now. Maybe it's done by the 29th, maybe it's done by the 26th, maybe it's done by the 1st or 2nd. I'd hate to get an absolute date. I wonder if we just allow us to get another week out, do a check-in, see how they're progressing in it, unless they're given a date specific, they will be open by the 29th. I would be skeptical if they're given a date specific right now.
He's saying to the best of,
Yeah, so he's hedging.
I mean, he's trying to tell us that things can happen.
Yep.
Now, we want to have a wonderful ribbon cutting celebration. But, you know, we're also inviting people with WashDOT, FMCIB, SRTC. So we're going to the state and we need to give these folks some advance notice. So normally I would send a save the date at least a month in advance. And then periodically, you know, send a reminder if they have not RSVP'd. So I'm waiting for direction from you. What would you like to do? And Commissioner Kearns, it's your district.
I mean, I think it.
It touches all of us.
Yeah, I would like to have the ribbon cutting as close to the opening of the actual road, so, I mean, we're kind of at the mercy of when can the contractors get the work done?
Well, now.
I mean, I don't wanna pick a day that the contractor's then gonna come back and say, oh, the road's not done yet either, so.
Well, if I could just inject here that we have, in my experience, we have never had a groundbreaking or a ribbon cutting where construction has not already started or the road has already opened. It's a ceremonial celebration.
But again, we don't wanna have the ribbon cutting before the road is done either,
Exactly.
so.
It'd be better
When
to
are
push
they
it a
gonna be
week
done?
then, like you're saying,
I mean,
Scott.
can they,
Close it off again.
yeah, I mean, that.
Sorry, just kidding.
That's what I don't want to.
Yeah.
Close it.
Yeah, so.
But
so
the
I-
next Tuesday is
Just kidding.
At that location of
Sorry.
Harley and Bidlow, we do have enough land that we could hold the ribbon cutting off of the roadway, standing parallel to the road and cut the ribbon. But, you know, with the road open.
How do
Or
we
the
know?
road could be ready to open. The road could be ready to open, we just don't open it until the event.
Okay, Pat, you raised your hand.
Yeah, I just wanted to recap what I'm hearing. I think it might make sense just to give it another week and see if we learn anything more. Hesitant to pick another date and then save the dates out and then only to move it again. So, today's the 1st, the 7th. 4 weeks is ideal. 3 weeks, I think we could work with. Knowing that attendance might be a little bit lighter if people don't have as much notice. Certainly 2 weeks would be the bare minimum. But in the meantime, I think if that's the board's desire, it would be my recommendation as well. We just give it a little bit more time. And in the meantime, we will talk to the vendors and make sure equipment is available for the 29th, 28th, 26th, sometime in that range. But maybe just table it, a decision until we know more.
Thank you, Pat. I know it's not ideal, but I would agree that we can delay a week and have 3 weeks, anticipating that it's on the 29th. I mean, I think that's, or yeah, the 29th.
Then could I please ask commissioners that you pencil it in on your
Yeah, I think
calendars
we should all put a hold.
for 11 o'clock on Tuesday, the 29th. And then, of course, you will have to adjust your agendas.
I just think a lot of the, like, with Washington, there's a lot of the state people may not come over, but some of them are already here. So they'll be able to put it on their calendar in 3 weeks' time, and some of the FMCIP members live here. I think like Crab, like I've got a commissioner from Lincoln County and one from Whitman County, Commissioner French on it, that would be able to join at 3 weeks' notice would be plenty for them.
Okay.
So I think we'll be okay. And I just think of like, Mike Gribner with WashDOT, still lives here. So that would be enough notice for him to represent Olympia, on that. So, otherwise he could already be scheduled out, who knows with anyone. So I don't think delaying a week to save the date out is gonna make a difference. From that
Oh, okay.
perspective.
So you're saying wait over the next week, people put it as a
Hold.
and then we'll see if we have more information by next Tuesday. Okay.
To send
Got
out the save the date for the official date.
That seems to make sense.
I'll pass that
Sound
along
okay?
to the project team.
And I will inquire though as well. I have a dinner on Thursday night that I will inquire with the guardrail company as to what's happening. So I'll know. I'll know.
Well, yeah, I mean, cause I don't want us to pick the 29th, send out the invites and then have the contract say, oh no, we won't be done till November 1st. And so then we're having a ribbon cutting and the road's not open for another.
And I
Other
can certainly
clients,
appreciate
so.
that, Commissioner.
Yeah.
So,
Okay, I've got a hard stop at 11:30. So, just see.
I'm finished. Pat, do you have anything?
Nope, that's it. We have the juvenile justice tour tomorrow. Should be on the 2 commissioners who are participating, have the board's calendar. So we'll be taking media through, doing a tour and having a media availability. Send out the media advisory, have some RCPs. We'll keep everyone posted.
Okay. Yeah, I think that's on my calendar. Okay, thank you. And I just want to thank the communications team very much for State of the County. I want to just let you know how much I appreciate all the efforts and all the work that you guys put into it. So Pat and Martha Lou and Jessica and Jeff, of course, came in at the end to help. Just want to say thank you for all of it and everyone's attendance and helping make it a great day for the county.
You're very welcome.
So, And then any other miscellaneous? Josh, Valley Chamber.
Oh, well, I don't have a ton of info. So apparently because of our level of sponsorship, with the Valley Chamber, we are listed as sort of the primary sponsor of a certain event, like one event a year. And the Valley Chamber, I found out yesterday, has picked us to be the primary sponsor of the Manufacturing Matters dinner this Thursday night.
Yeah.
And
I didn't.
so, yeah, so apparently we also get a table at that.
4 seats.
Oh, it's 4?
4
Oh,
seats.
oh, I was told a table. I wasn't told how many.
Details,
Okay,
details.
I wasn't
Chairs
told
were on
how
the
many
table.
people.
It's a small table.
I just happened to, yeah.
Okay,
Got a
so,
call.
It's on the floor.
yeah, I found, I was notified yesterday. Scott was notified yesterday, so. We have, and I would have assumed it was 8. I didn't realize it was only 4. Okay, so we have some number of seats for Thursday night, at Center Place
Yes.
5.
I think Ashley did it last year for us.
They did.
So, cause yes, so when we, I'm in the
Yeah.
Valley Chamber.
Yeah, we're a municipal partner
Yes,
now.
so, we did get the manufacturing dinner was the one that we were then the sponsors for, and we have been for 3 years.
Okay.
So, yeah, and I think they have, I'd say we didn't, I haven't been paying attention to their flyers to pay attention to it. And
I wasn't told we were this year's sponsor. So
yes, so I was
nobody
thinking
told me.
as the chair, as the board member, yes. So anyway, so that's kind of how it's come about. I know I was there the first year. I think Ashley went last year and spoke. It's like a 1 minute, just thanking people and why manufacturing is important to the county to be helping sponsor as economic development and having manufacturing in our community. So there's an opportunity for anyone who could go on Thursday night. I cannot, as I'll be at this other event that I'll be talking to our the sub on the guardrails.
You're on guardrail duty.
I'm on guardrail duty, so no, I've got an AGC event, so dinner. So are you able to attend?
I can go.
Okay, so you can go and you can get the 1 minute.
So are we sure it's only 4 seats or is it?
I'm not sure.
8?
I heard 8 yesterday, up to 8.
Okay.
So
4 for sure, and we can fill more. if
Wants to go to dinner with me on
So-
Thursday.
French is good.
Oh, is he gonna go? I was gonna be there? Okay,
Okay,
so
there's
that's,
2.
we at least have 2.
Thursday night?
I can't.
I can't either.
Okay,
Yeah.
Okay, I know it's at Center Place. So,
you're not,
flying,
yeah, you're not.
flying to New York.
There you go. So,
Think about you from afar.
yeah, so I don't know if you want your spouse to go?
I'll see we'll see. I mean, if that's okay, I mean, I wanna offer it up to the county. I mean, it's the county's membership.
Is there any
first,
staff
so-
that would?
She went last year, she's like, no.
I have plans, otherwise I would.
Okay.
Hey, Ron. you got-
I'm busy.
That was fast.
Can't fill on
Need to think about it.
So, okay,
Okay.
so you and Commissioner French will go.
Thank you. Thank you for the chance.
Maybe we can just bring our spouses.
Yeah.
Fill it that way.
Yeah, well, that's fine.
Figure it out.
Great.
Okay. But if anybody wants to go, just let it.
Everybody's
know.
just jumping at the
Yeah.
chance. Can you tell? Put us on that list. It's a good event though.
Practice.
So,
Good.
okay.
You'll all see an email that went out today announcing the grand opening of Vern's Cafe over in the annex for the courthouse. It's a little grab and go. There's coffee and different sort of options in the morning and grab and go foods in the lunchtime. So opens up today. So email went out countywide to encourage people to go and visit them, and we have another lunch option on the campus that's open again.
Great.
Yeah.
Excellent.
Very good.
Okay.
Lunch and coffee, the key word was there.
Yeah,
And-
we heard that.
Sure, do they have coffee options, like different types of lattes and things like that?
It was a requirement.
Anything else?
We have a couple of exec sessions, but I think we can probably do them this afternoon.
Yeah, and mine is no longer needed this week, make them up in future weeks, but
So just one.
yeah,
Just one, yep, by 10 minutes.
Okay, and I don't, Commissioner French, their conference with STA is happening, so I don't know that he'll be able to zoom in this afternoon, so anyway, so if it's just the four of us, then, and no one on Zoom, maybe we can just stay in the conference room then, or stay over there for that. Okay, well, thank you all very much, and we'll see you back, we'll adjourn for the